we have an apology from Utah Athletic Director Mark Harlan. And in light of that, I wanted to take a step back and look at how crazy differently year one in the Big 12 went for Utah and BYU. Like year one for both of them being in the league together, right? Because it's honestly, it's hard to have more respect for BYU at the end of this past year. And it's kind of hard to have less respect, relatively speaking, for Utah based on what happened to Utah. And you really just have to sort of laugh at it. And even what Mark Harlan is saying, I think kind of confirms that. So with this, you got to go back. Remember the Holy War. Everybody remember the Holy War. Fabulous ending to the game. Crazy game. I don't know that it was like a fabulous game all the way through, but we got a great ending. And there was a controversial holding call on 4th down on BYU's eventual game-winning drive. So Mark Harlan, Utah's athletic director, was very upset about that holding call. Turns out, we see all the reverse angles from people. It actually looks like it was the correct call. But Mark Harlan, in the post-game press conference, commandeered the podium, got up there and said, quote, "I've been an athletic director for 12 years. This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Somebody stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight. Thank you." Man, even reading that back now, like I heard it a million times when it happened. Reading it back now, I'm like, that was a lot. That's an athletic director. An athletic director that has gotten into some Twitter spats before, or at least gotten involved on Twitter, which would let you know that, perhaps, and I am not immune from this at all, by the way, perhaps a little bit of a emotion on the sleeve kind of guy that can get wrapped up in the emotions of things. It has happened to me many times on Twitter. But as an athletic director, you got to be careful about that. You're getting paid at least high 6 figures. You got to have a little bit more restraint. Well, he lost some of that money because Mark Harlan was fined $40,000 by the league, publicly reprimanded, and it was a mess. I mean, it was definitely a black eye for Utah. Whether Utah fans want to admit or not that was a hold, it's not a great look to have your athletic director doing that at all. Well, apparently Mark Harlan agrees because he has finally spoken about all of that for the first time. He did an interview with the Deseret News. They do a great job, by the way. If you want Utah and BYU coverage, I love reading the Deseret News. But he has now admitted that he apologized to everyone involved in the aftermath of the incident. So, hey, kudos to Mark Harlan. It took a while to come back around on this. And his statement that he put out right after the fine from the Big 12, I mean, that was not really like the most. I didn't see a ton of contrition in that necessarily, but I guess time heals all. With some time, he's had time to think about it. And this is what he said to the Deseret News. He said, quote, "I think as we talk about last season, as Kyle would say, there's things that they need to improve in as we head into next year. I would say the same of myself. I think that night, obviously, I reacted emotionally and my frustrations were expressed in a way that was not worthy of a true leader of a program of this stature. And certainly, as any leader should, you learn and grow from those experiences." I mean, that's the statement. Now, that statement probably should have just come out right afterwards. Like, that's not the way a true leader of a program of this stature acts. But at least we got it now. Kudos to him for saying it now. Better late than never. And that really is the truth. Like, even if it was a bad call, as an athletic director, the move to get up there and stoke the flames of your fans who have looked down on the conference since coming into it while you're in the midst of a 5-7 season, that's a pretty bad look. And that's not leadership. And that's not the way you should be conducting yourself there. So, yes, wholeheartedly agree with his assessment there. Again, recognizing I'm not saying I would be great at it. Shoot, I'd be popping off all the time, man. But that's why I just do a YouTube show and sit behind a Twitter account. Like, I'm not now, if you paid me, I don't know exactly what Mark Harlan makes. If you paid me $800,000, then sure, I'll delete the Twitter account. I won't even mess with it at all. Like, you give me that, I will make some concessions there. I would change things. There is more to the story here. It says, the day after his postgame rant, Harlan reached out to both Tom Holmoe, the athletic director at BYU, and Kalani Sitake, BYU head coach, to apologize for his comments. He said, quote, reflecting, I felt like it took away from their victory and the hard-earned victory of those student athletes in their program. Harlan also reached out to Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark to apologize. And he said, quote, bringing the Big 12 and diminishing our participation in the Big 12 was, in my view, inappropriate. I don't want at all anyone to think that Utah's participation in the Big 12 isn't something we're proud of. And frankly, we're honored to be competing. Well, there you go. Utah fans, your AD says you're honored to be competing in the Big 12. And you know what? When you go 5-7 in the league in your first year and you were picked to win the thing, it might be good to show a little bit of contrition there and say, yeah, hey, happy to be here, happy to be competing, or lack thereof, because there was not a lot of competing during the 7-game losing streak that happened last year for Utah. So in light of this, let's just, if you'll indulge me, let's take a step back and look at how year one of having both Holy War participants in the conference wins. Okay. Utah comes in with a brazen cockiness because they're, one, upset about the Pac-12 burning down. They're, two, upset that they were wrong in the battle between fan bases, Big 12 and Pac-12, as to what was happening as George Kliavkov was overseeing the sinking of the SS Pac-12 Titanic. They're upset about that. And three, they know, hey, Cam Rising's back. The last 2 years that we had him healthy, we won the Pac-12 and went to the Rose Bowl. So there's a brazen cockiness, just brash cockiness, looking down upon everything in this league. BYU, meanwhile, was picked 13th, but still very humble and just happy to be in the Big 12, maybe wondering a bit if Kalani Sitake is the right guy for the job, and wondering who their starting quarterback was going to be, whether or not that would be Gary Bohannon or not. That's where Utah and BYU were coming into the season. Well, now let's look at what happened on the field. Utah, brazen, brash, cocky, deals with Cam Rising issues once again with injuries, which was something that I said in preseason. Like, hey, I feel like there should be more discussion about this. I don't think it's a guarantee the guy's going to stay healthy. I don't wish anything poorly on him, but we've just seen it's been like 2 years since he's played a full game. Cam Rising gets hurt. They lose 7 straight games. They finish ahead of only one team in the Big 12 standings and miss a bowl game for the first time in a non-COVID season in a decade. That was year one in the truck stop conference, that was not worthy of them, filled with podunk schools in the middle of nowhere that cannot compete, cannot hold Utah's jock. Have you seen our Rose Bowls? They go 5-7. That actually really hurt the Big 12. As I have said many a time, the fact that Utah, the preseason pick to win the league, performed so poorly. If it were Utah that had BYU's resume, they're probably getting legitimate discussion for a second playoff spot. But Utah screwed the league on that by being almost the worst team in the conference after being picked to win the league. Objectively hurt the league's chances to make the playoff with their poor performance. Meanwhile, BYU, humble as can be, wins 9 straight to start the year, climbs into the top 10, beats Utah on the road in the thrilling Holy War. You get Utah whining, complaining. AD throws a temper tantrum, creates national headlines, an embarrassing situation as he slams the league. BYU then does drop a couple of games, but they wreck Colorado in the most watched non-playoff bowl game of the season. And they at least gave the Big 12 a puncher's chance, like a shot at a second at-large team in the playoff instead of completely tanking the league's chances by being picked first and finishing 5-7. Little bit of a difference. A little bit of a difference here. And off the field, that's basically what was happening off the field or on the field. Off the field, as I mentioned, you've got the AD basically validating the entire. If Utah Twitter were a person, what Mark Harlan did at that microphone was act exactly as Utah Twitter as a person embodied would have acted. And so it just gave it like vindicated this whole attitude from their fan base, which had frankly just been disgusting from them as it related to the Big 12. Instead of humbling themselves in the midst of a horrible season, it just gave more life to all of those fans there. Meanwhile, BYU, it's like all you hear about BYU during the year, as they're drilling everybody and starting 9-0, they're giving fans ice cream at the stadium. I went and saw my team lose 38-9, and people could not have been nicer. Avery Johnson, K-State's quarterback's talking about how it was weird because he's not used to people in the stands encouraging him from the opponent. BYU doesn't complain when they're left out of the playoff discussion, and they should not have been. You really didn't hear much complaining at all. Hell, they give Kalani Sitake a chance at the Alamo Bowl press conference to say something and make his case, and he passes. That's BYU. Ideal partner, ideal league member, doing their part competitively. Utah, brash, cocky, complaining, loses, hurts the league's reputation, takes shots at the league from the podium, and sucks on the field. Sucks. That's how year one wins. If we want to even throw in one other thing, BYU landed the number one high school basketball recruit in the country for next year, which got them, Stephen A. Smith is doing an interview with A.J. DeBonsta and getting the Big 12 more pub that way. And we're not seeing that from Utah. We're not seeing that from Utah. Now, Utah can get right back on the horse. If things work out, if they're, they basically bet big on the New Mexico football program. If Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator, and Devin Dampier, the quarterback, work out, Utah they've got plenty of championship DNA in that program. They could be right back up near the top. But year one, frankly, was an embarrassment for Utah. And at least Mark Harlan, the athletic director, is coming back around now, tail tucked between his legs a little bit to, I don't know if full on apologize is the right word, but show some level of contrition for everything that happened there and his role in it, at least his role in it.